Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hillhookers podcast, episode 79. And this one's a bit different. It's just me this time. So, this is going to be an interesting one. Where I'm going to be breaking down the fights. I'm going to be doing the preview and the fight news this week. Before we get into all that, please remember to like and subscribe. It really does help out. Leave a comment. In fact, leave a comment telling me who you think's going to win the main event this weekend. And yeah, let's just get right into the card. Before we get started into the main card proper, I know that Dana White announced last week that Raul Rosas Jr. and Ricky Turcios were rescheduled for this weekend and that everything was good. Ricky Turcios and Raul Rosas Jr. will not be happening this weekend. So yeah, Dana White announcing fights before they're actually signed, sealed, and delivered. It's becoming a trend as of late. And what we know is that, one, it will not be happening. And from Ricky Tercios' Twitter, replying to someone asking what happened to the fight, he said he had said yes to 145 pounds in Vegas this Saturday. His opponent could not make it. He said, all good. I have no animosity. But that's what's going on with that fight. So that fight will not be happening this weekend either. I completely expect that fight to be rescheduled or rebooked for later, possibly later this, not later this month, but later in the month of March, potentially April. But I would assume it would still be happening within the next 3 to 4 weeks, as they would have wanted to do anyway. With that fight, I'm surprised that it's not happening this weekend, but in all honesty, it is what it is. Besides, for a fight that's not happening, let's get into the main card. Main event, Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Shamil. And is this a step too far for Shamil? He's got good striking, he's got good jiu-jitsu, he's got some good wrestling. Like, he's got good... He seems like he's going to be a very solid heavyweight in the heavyweight division for the UFC. My biggest issue is this a step too far going straight into the top 15 after only one win in the UFC thus far? Especially going into a 5-round main event. How is his gas tank going to hold up? Obviously, like, he has won by decision one time, and that was in Aries FC. I'm assuming that would have been a 3-round fight. Let me just double check. And yes, it was a 3-round fight. So obviously he can go the 15. But that just bears the question. Can he go the full 25? Especially with someone as dangerous as Rozenstruik, who has been gone all the way, all 5 rounds in a main event setting. Rozenstruik is used to that pressure. He's used to that spotlight. He's been in 6 main events. This man has had, excluding John, more main events than every other champion. And even then, him and Leon are tied at 6. This man has main event experience. This man has 5-round experience. And I fully expect him to try to use that to his own advantage. Shamil is someone who likes to come forward with a lot of power strikes. He does try to pick and choose when he does throw, but he does throw a decent amount, especially for a heavyweight. He will come in. He will try to hit him with 1-2s, hooks. He's got a pretty long reach, at, if I remember, at 78 inches, which is pretty solid, standing at 6'4", but Rozenstruik has fought people like that. He's 6'2" with a 78-inch reach as well. There's not really a reach advantage in this fight, and like, just watching Shamil fight, I just don't know if he's going to be able to find those shots that he was fighting against these other fighters. Hell, in his Contender Series fight, he landed one shot that dropped his opponent, and then it was all grappling from then on out, which his opponent was doing well until he got reversed. And then his opponent just gave up. Like, he didn't try to, once he got into a rear naked choke, his opponent never tried to fight the hands, never tried to do anything. So I just don't know. how Shamil is going to actually look in this fight against Jairzinho, who is a phenomenal kickboxer. Obviously, he has had losses in the UFC, but when you look at his losses, it's literally to the top of the division. His losses are to Jailton Almeida, who is a supreme grappler, good wrestling, great jiu-jitsu. Obviously, his last fight left a bitter taste in all of our mouths, but what that just is what it is. But he is able to take down almost every heavyweight in the world, and he's basically able to submit most heavyweights just outright. Alexander Volkov, someone who has a lot of experience, who's really good. Curtis Blades, superior grappler, and was just able to wear him down. Cyril Gahn is the most elusive heavyweight I think we have ever seen, and especially the most elusive heavyweight currently in the UFC top 15 and probably the most elusive heavyweight we have. And then Francis Ngannou, and no one can blame him for losing to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou is the heaviest hitter we've ever seen in MMA. So it's just, that's why I think this could potentially be a step too far. It's just, he was undefeated coming into the UFC in MMA. His first loss was to Francis, and then he's kind of gone back and forth, lost 2 in a row with Blades Volkov. I feel like with the way that Shamil comes in, I feel like Jairzinho is a really good technical counter striker, and he'll be able to find the shots that are going to be able to keep either Shamil off him or be able to take him out. And that's my personal thoughts on the fight. Is I just feel like this could be that just one step too far. This could be the heavyweight Abus versus Sean Strickland type deal, where it's just that one step, that one leap too far to be able to say that for Shamil, that one step too far. So that's the way I'm looking at it. It's just that Shamil's just not. He could get it done. Like, don't get me wrong, he can get it done. I'm just not sure that he does. I think personally that Jairzinho is going to be able to take this. Not in a relatively easy fashion, but just he'll be able to get this done. Moving on to the co-main event. And I love this fight. Vitor Petrino versus Tyson Pedro. This is a fun fight. This is a fun fight. Honestly, I feel like this is going to be a coming out party for Vitor. Vitor has really good hands and some really good power, and Pedro has been put out before, and Pedro is kind of one of those guys where it just kind of stop with him sometimes with the way he fights. This dude got knocked out in 2018 by Shogun Rua, and that just is what it is. He's gotten arm locked by OSP. He lost the decision to Ilir Latifi, lost the decision to Modestas Bukauskas. I just feel like, yes, he got his win against Anton, and Vitor has also fought Anton, and he went to a decision with Anton, whereas Tyson Pedro was able to finish him. I just feel like with the way it's going, the way Vitor's been in his last couple fights, he's just going to put out Pedro, whether that's knocking him out or hitting him with a hard counter left, counter right, him going down and him trying to get the ground and pound finish, can't find it. All of a sudden, he's wrapping up an arm triangle and tapping out Tyson Pedro. I just feel a finish coming, and I feel like it's going to be Vitor getting the finish. They also have another fighter in common in Modestas Bukauskas, where Vitor was able to knock him out with a check left hook, and Tyson lost the decision to Modestas. So the MMA math ain't going to be mathing in this one, because no matter what happens, because you look at it's like, well, he beat this guy better than this guy, but he lost to this guy where he beat this guy. Once you start trying to do that in math, it ain't going to work, because you got too many factors going on in that regard. And so I just, personally speaking, the way I look at it, Vito Petrino, he's going to be able to get the job done. He just has that power. He has those counter strikes, and he's got the submission ability to be able to get it done. And now, the featured bout between Alex Perez and Muhammad Mokaev. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think this is a fight that they're looking and hoping is going to be a real big coming out party for Muhammad Mokaev. Obviously, he's 5-0 in the UFC. This is gonna, if he wins this one, that'd be his 6th win. But beating someone who's within the top 7, top 6, near that top 5 status, someone who's fought for a title, I just feel like that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to give him that bump, be able to say, look at him, he's our undefeated prospect. He's going places, going to be big. He is very much where I'm looking at, and I'm like, all right, he wins this fight, and it's very potentially his next fight could be a title fight type of deal. Because with Muhammad Mokaev, it's either he wins this, if he wins this fight, it's either he's fighting for a title or he's fighting the likes of Brandon Moreno. Those are his 2 options right now, I feel like. Moreno just took that loss. He's going to need a little bit of time, but if it ends up being him versus Moreno, that's a really interesting stylistic fight. I just feel like I want to see him against Moreno, and I hope that's the direction the UFC goes in if he beats Alex Perez, as opposed to the Pantoja fight, jumping him from Perez to Pantoja. I just feel like that would be that step too far. I want to see him against someone in the top 5 before I see him going up against the champion. I don't want to see him fighting a champion like Pantoja, because Pantoja right now in the top 10 is 9-0 against other fighters, against other flyweights in the top 10 who are currently in the top 10. That is an insane record. 9-0 with multiple wins over 2 of the guys in that top 10. That is insane, and that is why I would love to see Mokaev fight someone like a Brandon Moreno before getting that title shot. It just is that step 2. It's just how high can he go, especially being so young. Mokaev is only 23 years old. This man is young. I feel like it's fine to give him that one more fight before throwing him into a title fight with Pantoja. It just, if you don't give him another fight, I just feel like it's going that step too far. It's jumping him up, especially considering in his last couple fights, we've been seeing some cracks. We've been seeing a little bit of like his flaws, his just what happens. The Jafal fight, the Jafal Philo fight, where he almost got fucking knee barred, and it was close. It was so close where he would have lost to Philo. And then Tim Elliott. That Tim Elliott fight was extremely close until the illegal knee, which I think, if I remember right, looked like it landed legally in the replay, but whatever. He gets that fight and wins that fight, but he was losing on the scorecards 100% indefinitely. When you looked at the judges' scorecards after the fight, every judge had it for Tim Elliott 2-0. Even if Mokaev had won the rest of that 3rd round, or just won the 3rd round in general, but it went to a decision, Mokaev would have lost that fight. That's not a good look. So I do think you do need to give him that 2 more fights to a title shot. I don't think he's ready for that title shot against Pantoja if he beats Perez. And again, that's if he beats Perez. Perez, I think we have all forgotten that Perez is good. Like, it's not like he's great, but he is good. His only losses in the UFC are to Joseph Benavidez, Davison Figueiredo, and Pantoja. 2 champions and a title challenger. I think with his long layoff, and they have been long layoffs, we have forgotten that Perez is kind of good. It's not like he's a scrub. But we need to not act like this is going to just be a one-sided domination. I don't see that happening. He's got pretty good takedown defense. He's got good striking. As long as he keeps it on the feet, I feel like he has a very, very good shot at winning this fight. And that's why I want people to remember is Perez may be a dog in this fight, but it's not like he is an absolute 100% lock to lose this fight either. I think Mikhaev wins, but this is going to be a very interesting fight for Mikhaev, I believe. That's just the way I'm looking at it. Mikhaev's just, he's good, but so is Perez. People just have forgotten that Perez is a very solid fighter in his own right. Moving on to the next fight on the main card. Umar Nurmagomedov versus Bekzat Alamakan. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know really anything about Bekzat. I've looked into his record. I've tried to find some of his fights. And I might have come up short just trying to find them. Wasn't able to. He has fought in Octagon. He's fought in Octagon? Or is this a different Octagon? This is a completely different Octagon. Alright. But he has fought some pretty good people. Has had some fights with people who are not as good. It could be a close fight, but I feel like Umar's going to come in and he's just going to do what Umar does. He's going to come in, grapple, and he's just going to try to get Bekzat out of there as quickly as possible. I think that's his game plan. I think his game plan is to just come in, smash Bekzat. Yeah. I am fucking up this man's name. Goddamn. But I feel like he's going to come in, try to finish Bekzat, and then he's going to call out Corey Sandhagen. I feel like that's what's going through his head, and I feel like that's just what's going to happen. He might not run through him as quickly as we all maybe want him to run through him, but that's because this man may just be that good of a fighter. We have seen a lot of guys come in on short notice or shorter notice in their UFC debuts and have done really well. Look at Diego Lopez. He came in short notice against Movzar, and look what he did. So I feel like we as fight fans can't just be counting out these people just because they're coming in shorter notice in their UFC debut against a ranked guy. We really need to start putting respect on these guys' names and just saying, hey, this guy's coming in. He's getting a huge opportunity. Let's see what he can do. Let's not jump the gun and say, well, this is a complete wash. Unless you have seen that guy fight and you know, like, oh, this is a terrible stylistic matchup for him. I feel like we need to stop this bandwagon of just, oh, this guy's getting demolished. The UFC are just doing this to set him up. Which they might be trying to do that. They might actually legitimately be trying to do that. But that doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. So, I would take Umar in this fight, in all honesty. But I do feel like Bekzat is going to be a good challenge for him. It's not going to be the worst. Now, moving on to the next fight. I'm excited for this fight, and I know so is Jimmy, so. Oh, man. Matt Schnell versus Steve Ercik. We've been very high on Steve Ercik since his UFC debut, and I feel like it's just going to continue in this fight. He's got pretty good striking. He's got really good submissions, as shown by his record. Man has 11 wins, 6 of those wins coming in by submission, 4 decisions, 1 KO, TKO. Problem, Matt Schnell has only been subbed twice in his career. He's been knocked out a couple times, but he's only been subbed twice. I just feel like Matt Schnell is going to give him a run for his money. Because Matt Schnell comes in, and he comes in for a fight. He is not going to just sit back and let this fight play out at a slower pace. This is going to be a fast-paced fight. Schnell's going to come in and try to push Ercik. He's really going to try and just come in and push him back and try to win. He's going to try and go for the finish. That's what Snell always does. He always tries to go for a finish, whether that's on the feet, on the ground, even in a clinch. He's trying to find a way to get it to where into a position to where he can finish. And so I just feel like that's the way this fight is going to go. And I feel like Steve is going to be able to either with a time a takedown, whatever it may be, to be able to find his own rhythm and be able to find the ways to win this fight. Or Snell could just completely overtake Usyk in just terms of pace and just be able to push him and just be able to limit to limit Usyk's output to make his own shine and really just make it to where he kind of just wins the fight overall, all 3 rounds, or just finishes him. This is such a close fight, and I feel like this is a fight with fight of the night written all over it, in my opinion. I feel like this is going to be a really good fight, and I feel like, yeah, this could be fight of the night without a doubt. It's banger. I love it. I love this fucking fight. Oh my god. Now, moving on. That was the last fight on the main card. Was Matt Snell versus Steve Usyk. Not a whole lot on the prelims I'm extremely excited for. There's one that I feel like is going to be a really interesting fight at 135 pounds, and that's Shavit Bajarat versus Ayman Zahabi. Ayman Zahabi is the brother of Firas Zahabi, so he has been around high-level coaches, high-level athletes his whole career. And I just feel like that's going to really show in this fight. Shavit Bajarat is extremely good, but I feel like Ayman Zahabi is going to be able to do some really good work in here, and I feel like this might be an upset. I feel like Ayman might be able to get this one done. Shavit coming off his no contest with Henry after the low blow. So I feel like he's going to be coming in trying to really prove something in this fight because he didn't get to finish the fight last time. He didn't get to actually win or lose. He just... nothing happened, essentially. Like, where it just didn't go long enough for there to be any closure. So I just feel like he's going to go in here and really try to win this fight. Really just dominate this fight. And I feel like he's going to try and go for a finish in this one. He's really going to try and finish this one after that last showing. And that's all the fights that I'm excited for. In terms of like the actual fight itself that I'm excited for, there are a couple interesting ones here and there. Eric Anders versus Jamie Pickett. I feel like that's just going to be maybe just a quick fight, maybe a fun little fight. Eric Anders being a really good athlete. Jamie Pickett just hopefully doesn't continue his slump in the UFC. This man is 2-6 in the UFC. He's lost to Josh Friend, Bo Nickel, Dennis Tully-Lulilin, Kyle Dawkins, Jordan Wright. Yeah, I just don't think this man is going to be able to beat someone as solid as Eric. Eric is one of those guys who I consider like right. If you were to have like a top 25, he's in that 20 to 25 mix. He's like perpetually like kind of like in terms of just where he's at in his career, he's that guy that you put people up against, generally has kind of been that guy you put up against to see if they're, all right, let's give him someone who's right outside the top 15. Let's give him someone who's in the top 50, right at the low end of top 15. And that's kind of where he's been most of his career. And so that's why I feel like he's just going to win this fight. If you're not on that level, you're not on that level. And he will expose you for it. And we just know that Jamie Pickett just isn't on that level. So I just feel like that's just going to be a pretty good performance by Eric. I'm not going to really say a good fight, but it's definitely going to be a good performance by Eric Anders. And then you got Christian Leroy Duncan versus Claudio Ribeiro. And I just feel like Christian Leroy Duncan is going to win this fight. Hilario is 1-2 in the UFC. His one win is against Joseph Holmes, who is 8-4, is 1-3 in the UFC, and he missed weight in that fight as well. And this man also, Joseph Holmes, lost to Jamie Pickett, Young Park as well. So I just feel like this is going to be a Chris Leroy Duncan win. He's only got one loss. That one loss coming in the UFC. Darren Petrosian in his second fight in the UFC. So I just feel like he's going to be able to win this fight. It's just going to be a quick fight, and he's going to win via finish, more than likely. This man has done almost nothing but finish people. He only has one decision. If he's going to win, he's going to win by finish, and it's going to be a spectacular finish at that. And that is the card for UFC Vegas 87. So now I get to go over some fight news, fight announcements, just some general things going on in the UFC MMA landscape. Not a lot going on, so this is going to be relatively quick. I'm not going to belabor some of these because they're really like, one of these is a rebooking, and we'll start there. Manelkov versus Mateus Nicolau has been rebooked for April 27th. I know in one of our videos we have talked about this fight, so I will leave that linked, and you can get all of our thoughts on that fight. But that has now been rebooked for April 27th, and there were two other fights now booked for April 27th, but not for the UFC. For BKFC, the King of Violence is back. Mike Perry versus Thiago Alves, main event. And I don't know how to feel about that. I haven't seen Thiago Alves fight in BKFC. I've seen a couple of his fights from earlier in the UFC, and I'm just like, yeah, this is about what I expect from BKFC. This is the type of booking that makes sense. Now, I did see that they have tried to get Mike Perry, so I'm like either Darren Till or Anthony Showtime Pettis to fight Mike Perry in BKFC. Darren Till, I can see doing it. I don't see the reasoning for Anthony Pettis to do it. What does Anthony Pettis gain from doing that in terms of just what he's done in his career? I don't see Pettis doing it. I don't see Pettis being built for bare knuckle like that. Just like how Luke Rockhold wasn't really built for it. Eddie Alvarez was built for it. Mike Perry is like legitimately built for it. Jorge Masvidal, if this had been around his whole career, he would have been in this, and he would have been built for this type of shit. He was doing that when he was coming up, when Kimbo Slice in the day, right? He was in the backyards fighting bare knuckle, so I could see them doing it. And then there's the other announcement from BKFC for April 27th, and I hate it because they rebooked Ben Rothwell versus Todd Duffy. Why are we still doing this to Todd Duffy? Why are we carting this man out to be knocked out, subbed, whatever it may be in whatever organization it is, to the big stars? We've been doing this since Alistair Overeem was in Dream and was the heavyweight champion. Oh, who do we have him defend against? Todd Duffy. Hey, Phil DeFries is about to have the most title defenses in KSW history. Who do we have him defend? Todd Duffy. Hey, we need an opponent for Ben Rothwell to look good against in BKFC. Who do we? Todd Duffy. Why do we keep doing this to this man? Can we just leave this man alone? In all honesty, I feel like this is going to be a Ben Rothwell win. And that just is what it is. I just don't get why we keep bringing in Todd Duffy to fight these fights. I just don't understand the purpose for bringing in Todd Duffy, other than it's a name. And that's really it. But moving on from that, we have a fight booked for May 18th. Jong Park versus Abus Magomedov. I like this fight. I feel like Iron Turtle's going to go in there and run through Abus Magomedov. He has really good strength. He's got really good submissions. If he can survive, if Abus goes for another first round flurry and gasses out again, or just gasses out throughout the fight, Jung Young Park is getting the finish in this fight, and it's gonna be glorious. Jung Young Park gonna hopefully bounces back from his last fight against Andre Muniz. Holy shit! Why was that hard for me to remember? Why was Muniz hard for me to remember? But yes, he will. Hopefully, he will bounce back from his win against Andre Muniz, and then Abus Magomedov is trying to bounce back from his fight against Caio Braulio, and I just don't think he's going to. I feel like Jung Young Park's gonna be able to win this fight and potentially bounce Abus Magomedov out of the UFC, which is kind of insane to think that that's possible right now. But when you actually look at his record, like, he's not really done anything since his debut with the organization. He comes in, knocks out Dustin Stoltzfus, and then loses to Sean Strickland and Caio Braulio. And now he's fighting Jung Young Park. Like, talk about a leap to a fall. He went from fighting Dustin Bukauskas down here to Sean Strickland, Caio Braulio, and now he's back fighting Jung Young Park, who was just fighting for a potential top 15 spot before Andre Muniz got bumped out of the top 15. But that is what it is. And I just feel like, yeah, Jung Young Park's going to be able to get this one done. He's going to more than likely finish Abus Magomedov. If I had to take a wild guess as to how this fight were to end, I feel like Jung Young Park, the Iron Turtle, is going to finish this fight. Whether it be by submission or by KOTK. He's just going to get this finish. I don't see Abus having enough for this, man. Moving on from that, we have some really interesting news coming out from, of all people, which actually kind of makes sense that it could come from this man. Rafael Fiziev. He has been hearing that the UFC is seriously looking into creating a 165-pound division, saying that they've already identified something, quote unquote. And I heard this news. I immediately popped it into the Discord and said, so the UFC is putting Chandler and Connor into a 165 title pound fight. That's what's going on, right? The marketing's already there. Potential three-weight champion. And if Anatoly does not win his title fight this weekend, the marketing is going to be insane because it will be the legitimate first three-weight champion in MMA, which is insane. So I feel like they're really going to try to harp on that, and that's how they're also going to get either Connor fighting for the 155-pound belt, just because it makes it easier for fans to stomach, I guess. But also, hey, double champ Connor again. Let's fucking go. Or it gets Connor to actually fight his first title defense against Islam Makhachev. And whether I'm grasping at straws here, or who else would they be looking at to create a 165 division at this point? Because I feel like if they're going to create it, they're going to do it to sell. They're going to use Connor to sell the most and to legitimize that division the most. Which can make as much sense or as little sense as you want it to. Just because of his current record, how he's been doing, like, how does that legitimize it? But then you look at it and it's like, oh, well, it legitimizes it because he was the former 145 and 155 pound champion, so it legitimizes it by saying this person is a champion. He has been a champion. He is now your reigning defending champion at this division after beating this man. Whether I'm grasping at straws or not, I don't know. But whether that is it or not, we will see. Whether they actually ever even create a 165-pound division, we will see. And then something interesting was a report coming out For the UFC 298 fight night weights for the fighters, and I just found these fascinating, so I just kind of wanted to go through some of the highlights and just talk about how some of these people, like, legitimately, how do they make the weight? You have your kind of standard ones that we all expect to hear. Volkanovski going from 145 to 166. Same with Ilya, 144 to 167. Paulo Costa's is insane, going from 185.5 to 215.2 pounds, which is only a percent more, but that is an insane amount of weight. That is a 30-pound shift. Whitaker pretty close to the same with that. Went from 85.5 to 207.6, which is a 12% jump in weight. And Machado Gary, potentially not cutting that much weight. Coming in at 70.5, and then coming into the fight at 180.6. Jeff Neal is someone who apparently cuts a lot more weight than I thought he did. He weighed in at 170.5, and he came in at 200.8. Another 30-pound jump at 18%. Merab and Henry both coming in around 12 to 16% more. Roman Kopylov coming in, he came in on short notice, only jumped 5%, whereas Anthony Hernandez jumped 10%, which again, these are normal. The funniest one out of all of them, though. So Marcus Rogerio de Lima comes in 261.5. Night of the fight weighs 273.4. Junior Toffa weighed in at 249 pounds the day of weigh-ins. The night of the fight, he weighed 247. He is the only fighter on this list to actually have lost weight going into his fight, which is insane, which I can understand. He came in at 249, why he didn't cut any weight, but he also he wasn't cutting weight after that, so I just find that kind of hilarious that he comes in minus 1%. He lost 2 pounds in between Friday and Saturday night. I just found that highly fascinating. The rest of these, like I said, kind of similar, from 7 to 13%. A couple other 26, 30-pound jumps. And that's really about it. I just found some of these stats fascinating, especially the Junior Toffa, where he actually lost weight coming from the official weigh-in to fight night. That is hilarious, and I love that stat now. That is the best thing I've ever read in my life. That is hilarious. Most people are coming in weighing more. Oh yeah, I'm just going to weigh 2 pounds less, just because I'm not cutting any weight, so my natural body weight fluctuations are going to take over. But that is all for all the fight news and everything. Fight news, fight announcements, and all of that. Everything on the fights. Again, this upcoming review after the fights will be back to normal. This was a one-off appearance of just me going through a preview. We've had a similar situation in a review before where I was out, and so Jimmy and Kitty did that on their own, but they at least were together. There were 2 members of the podcast, but I did offer to do this because they are currently on vacation, so visiting family, so I just said, hey, I'll do the preview myself if we need to do that. Hope y'all enjoyed. Hopefully y'all enjoyed. If you did not and you don't like my voice, you had to sit through all of this just listening to me. I feel sorry for you, but hey, you're the one who decided to do it. And if you did stick around all the way, please like and subscribe. And as always, have a good night, y'all. Peace.